All right, let's do the notes for 8.9. Now, here's some formulas that they give us to use. I will tell you B and C, those two formulas, we're just going to do it the old-fashioned way without using those formulas, just the way we did in the previous section, and I will show you examples of each. But A is a formula that you should know, and D is a formula you should know. So whenever they talk about commission, remember, commission is simply the amount of money that you get. If you're a salesperson and you sell furniture, for example, you get a commission. You get a certain percent of your sales as part of your salary. So that's what commission is. So commission would be equal to the rate of the commission, the percent, times the total sales. And here, simple interest is principal times rate times time, or I equals PRT. I'm sure that you have seen this formula before. Principal is the amount of money. If you're talking about putting money in a bank account, it would be the amount of money in the bank account. If you're talking about interest on a loan, it would be the amount of money that you borrowed. Rate is the percent, but again, just like before, you don't put the percent in there. You always put the decimal, so you'd have to move it 2 places to the left. And then the time is always the time in years. Okay, so we'll look at that as we come up to it in an example, what you might have to do for that. All right, so let's go ahead and let's do example 1. So Chris works in a sales department of a large company that does kitchen remodeling. He visits homeowners and gives them an estimate on the price of the remodeling job. His commission rate is 15%. If Chris earned $2,868 last month in commission, what were his total sales for the month? So we are going to use that formula in A. So commission equals the rate times the sales. So it says he earned $2,868 in commission. So we're going to put that here is equal to his rate. Well, what is his commission rate? It's 15%, which remember means it's 0.15. What were his sales? Well, that's what we're looking for. So let's call it X. Okay, so you can see I have an equation. I need to get the X alone, so I'm going to divide both sides by 0.15. These will cancel, and I'm going to use my calculator, and I'm going to do 2868 and divide it by 0.15. And if you do that, you get 19120. So what does that mean? It means his sales, he sold $19,120 worth of furniture, or worth of, what was it? Kitchen supplies or remodeling. So he sold $19,120, but he earned, because his commission, he earned almost $2,900. So please know that formula. Commission equals rate times the sales. Now let's look at this one. This month, Chris's commissions decreased by $717. What was his percent decrease between last month and this month? So we're going to just use the way we did it in the last section, and we are going to rewrite this as a sentence that we can understand. Now notice we are looking for his percent decrease. So what we can do is we can say $717 is what percent of, and what was his commission last month? It was $2,868. That's really all we're looking for. So his decrease is what percent of his amount last month? Because it says, what was his percent decrease? This is the decrease. That's how much it went down. So if we just change this into a sentence, so 717 is what percent of, that's times, let's go ahead and get the x alone by dividing by 2868. Those will cancel. If I plug this into my calculator, 717 divided by 2868, I get 0.25. But remember, again, here we're looking for a percent, so it's not 0.25%. If I move it over 2 places, it's going to be 25%. So there was a 25% decrease in his commission from last month to this month. He had a rough month. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do some more percent problems. So here we go. It says Val earned $15.50 per hour, and she received a raise of 6% of her hourly rate. What is her new hourly rate? Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to decide what is 6% of $15.50, because she got a raise of 6% from her previous pay, which was $15.50 an hour. So that would be X is equal to 0.06 times $15.50. So you can see your X is already alone, so it's just a multiplication problem. So in your calculator, do 0.06 times 15.50. When you do that, you get 0.93. Now, you're not looking for percent, so don't be moving your decimal at all. What this means is that she got a 93-cent raise. So now the question is, what is her new hourly rate? Well, you're going to take her old hourly rate, $15.50, and you're going to add 93 cents. So if we add these together, remember decimals, we're just going to put it right down here. So 3, 14, 1, 6, 1. Her new hourly rate is $16.43. All right, that makes sense, doesn't it? Let's go on to number 3. So on his first algebra exam, Tom studied and earned a score of 95. Foolishly, he got cocky and barely cracked the book for the second exam. His score on the second exam was 45% less than his score on the first exam. What was his score on the second exam? Well, let's see. We know it was 45% less than 95. So I'm thinking we need to first find out what is 45% of 95. And that will tell us how much lower his exam is. So X is equal to 0.45 times 95. Remember, of means multiplication. So in your calculator, if you do 0.45 times 95, what you do is you get 42.75, but let's round that up to 43. So let's figure out what that means. 43 is the 45% of 95. So that is how much lower he got on that second exam. So how would I figure out what his actual score was? Well, I'm going to take the 95 and I'm going to subtract the 43. because he got 43 points lower. So if I do that, I get 52. So that means that Tom got a 52 on his second exam. Well, that'll teach him not to study, won't it? I bet he'll go back and he'll study for his third exam. So again, it was 45% lower, so we had to figure out what 45% of 95 was. And that was how much lower his exam was than his 95, so then we had to subtract. All right, last example here. So this is an interest problem. So remember, interest is equal to principal times the rate times the time. So Jessica borrowed $2,000 from her credit union at a simple interest rate of 12%, which is really high. Find the interest on the loan for 2 years. So the interest is going to be, the principal is $2,000, it's how much she borrowed, times her rate. Now again, you never plug in a percent. You always have to change it to a decimal. So that would be 0.12. And her time is 2 years, so that would just be times 2. So let's go ahead and let's multiply that out. So 2,000 times 0.12 times 2. And hopefully you're getting 480. So her interest was $480. Now remember, that's the interest. And since this is a loan, she has to pay that back. So B says, how much does she pay back at the end of the 2 years when she pays off the loan? Well, she has to pay the original $2,000 that she borrowed, plus she has to pay back the $480 of interest. So she has to pay back $2,480 to the bank. Okay, here's our last example. Now again, it's an interest problem, so we're still going to use interest equals principal times the rate times the time. So find the interest on a loan of $1,500. So again, $1,500, that is our principal, times our rate. It's 11%, but we would put in 0.11. Now, here's the tricky part. It is only for 9 months. Your time that we plug in has to be in years. If I plug in a 9 here, it means that I've borrowed the money for 9 years. That's not true. So whenever you're giving a part of a year or a certain number of months, you always take that number of months and put it over 12. Why over 12? Because there are 12 months in a year. So if I rewrite this problem, it's going to be 1,500 times 0.11. And if in your calculator you take 9 and divide it by 12, you're going to get 0.75, because that is 0.75 or 3/4 of a year. Now you can simply go ahead and multiply, but that's very important that you make that change. So I'm just going and multiplying in my calculator, and I'm getting 123.75. So if he borrowed $1,500 at 11%, for 9 months, the interest that they will have to pay back is $123.75. And I believe that's what they're looking for. Find the interest. It didn't say how much total would they have to pay back like it did in number 4. It was just looking for the interest. And there it is.